Got a little echo in my head, but who cares? Here we are, everybody. We're here. We made it. It's 50 Toasts with Chris Bowers. Bowers is a fantastic comic, former comedy club owner, motivational speaker, purveyor of weird coats and nutty beards, and we'll get to him in just a second. 50 Toasts is right here in this space every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and wherever else the hell you are. Do the math. Check your local listings. Next week, I think we're going to be me. I think I'm going to be the guest. There was sort of a request from a friend of mine. He said people probably want to ask you all the dumb questions, and so we might do that. I'm going to nail that down, but I think it's going to be me as the guest of 50 Toast next week. More details to come. We do Quick Snaps, the podcast, on the Quick Snaps platforms on Mondays at 7:30 Eastern. Patreon.com, type in Kostaki, figure out how to join the team over here, and come join us at All Pro Lines, whatever your favorite social media platform is. We're doing football jokes and memes, and you can interact and you can write jokes and tags with us. It's good fun. Chris Bowers wrote a joke for us once this season. Well, he wrote an idea. It was such a good idea.
I just send stuff to you, and because you're the football guy, it's like
we called it a joke, but it was really just a good idea. It was the thing about the owners.
Oh yeah, that if you don't win one playoff game in 10 years, you have to sell the team. I think that's a good. I mean,
no one's going to argue with that. That's great.
It just should be a rule. You know?
Let's get him in here, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Bowers, everybody. Thanks for joining me, buddy.
Hey man, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a weird sound thing. I hope that's not happening for everyone. Let's check the comments, see if can you guys hear us? Kostaki, you have a big echo, says Ron. Yeah, me too. Shit. All right. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll mess around with this a little bit. Let's see. This goes into here. This goes into here. There's no reason that should be an echo. I took this off. We do this. The sound goes into my headphones. And then the speaker is this, so it shouldn't be out in the world. What if I do that? Is that worse? Is that better?
You sound amazing to me this whole time.
No, I can't hear Bowers at all. See, that's no good.
See, that's the problem.
Bowers is a pain in the ass, but he's worth listening to. Hold on. What about now?
I can hear you the whole time, so I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay. And you're not getting an echo?
No, sounds perfect to me.
All right, you guys type in. Can you still hear an echo? Is it still a problem? I've got it in here as an echo, but I can handle it because I'm a pro.
Right?
But I don't want to torture you guys for an hour with this shit. Chris sounds perfect. What about me, Andreas? Yes. Echo. Echo's worse. Wow. Damn it.
Do you just want to write your questions on a piece of paper and I'll just answer
that's
out loud
great.
since you can hear me and you can't hear you? I don't know.
That's great. How am I the one echoing? All right, let me do something dramatic, and if that doesn't work, we'll do restart.
Okay. No headphones?
Go off with this. We'll do this, and we'll go to MacBook built-in speakers. What about now?
I still hear you fine.
No, I can't hear you at all. What about now? Talk to me, Bowers.
Check 15711.
Shit.
Welcome to 50 sound checks.
God damn it. Let's see.
I should have logged in.
What if we take this out?
Well, now I can't hear you. I can't. Can you hear me? Because I can't hear you now, finally.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now. Yeah.
Shit, I can't hear you at all. Okay, go away and come back. Go away and come back, everybody. Sorry. Hours.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Hold on. What about now?
No, I'm kidding. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you great.
Okay. I can hear you fine.
In my headphones, though.
Do you still have an echo?
This says we're still live. Andreas, are you out there? Marge? Powers is good. Kostaki has an echo.
Do you want to try to do it so I can try?
I used it this morning on Bob and Tom, and it called another station, and everything works great. Exactly the same setup. I did a whole restart of the whole computer and everything.
I mean, it could be a Mac thing. Maybe I'm on a Mac. I mean, I could try to do it on my phone. I mean, it's still an
I'm on a
iPhone.
Mac. I don't think it's you.
Oh,
I think
okay.
it's me. But I don't know why. Let me try all the choices here, and if it doesn't work, I'll just shut up and you'll talk. It'll be like your favorite podcast of your whole life.
No, I do better with questions.
Test.
Check, check.
It's echoey as hell. Oh man.
Now I hear you.
Oh, what's happening? I didn't do nothing different.
Yeah.
You didn't do nothing different.
No, this is my normal setup. Other than I don't do StreamYard a lot. One time we had this happen with StreamYard with Todd. That's why I mentioned switching to my phone, because that's eventually what I had to do, is switch to my phone.
All right.
But this was like in April.
Let's go to Rex. Just all right. Well, let's talk. We'll start. Me talking less wouldn't kill nobody anyway. Well, thank you for hanging in there, everybody. We appreciate you guys being here. It's Chris Bowers. Chris Bowers is awesome. Let's chat with Chris Bowers. You, sir, among other highlights, motivational speaker, comedy club owner, comedian, contrarian, Zoom comedy pioneer.
I mean, I will say, I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. Like the pandemic officially started, I think, on March 15th, and we started a show on March 16th. So we were pretty close to the beginning of it, of doing Zoom stuff right away.
I just looked at that article about an hour ago when I was prepping. You know how I do, like a journalist does.
Sure.
And I was I was early-ish as a guest on that show.
First couple weeks.
And you guys started right away. I was very impressed with that. And it's great. And you're still doing it, right?
Yeah, we just hit our 200th episode was last week. So
tell the people about the show, and I'll shut up for a minute.
It's a show called Social Distancing Social Club, so it's SDSC for short. There's 4 hosts, so it's myself, Steve Hofstetter, who's the comedian-owned guy from all the Heckler videos, and then Ben Glebe, who was host of Idiot Test and was on Chelsea Lately Forever, and then Rachel Gallagher reads all our tips and stuff. She's essentially our Christy Lee. And honestly, Kostaki, what we're doing is old school Bob and Tom. I'm the laugh like Bob used to be, and Steve kind of runs the show like Tom does, and Ben's kind of Chick, just the goofy one, just kind of doing fun stuff, whatever.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a good time. We do it 4 days a week. We did it 5 days a week till July, and then we went down to 4 days a week. We do it Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. It's 3 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and then Saturday it's at noon Pacific, so 3 p.m. Eastern. But we generally have 2 comics on a show. They each do a 5-minute set, and then people tip them in real time. So the better you do, the more money you make, which is kind of cool. That doesn't usually happen in comedy. It's kind of a fun exercise that people, I like this joke, here's $5, or that joke was hilarious, here's $8. It's kind of a cool experience. So it's been fun. It's been a cool, I tell the people that watch the show, like, I've been doing comedy for 12 years. I've been, doing podcasts. but a lot of it's just been yelling into a void, and to have people actually listening for the first time ever is kind of nice. It's kind of nice to say stuff and people hear it,
Well, you're a great comic, and I was telling my wife this earlier. I don't think there's anyone else who bought a comedy club as a comedy embryo and then became a great comic. I can't think of anyone. Is there anyone? We've discussed this before.
Yeah, I think there's a few out there, but
come on.
For being 2 years in and buying a comedy club and then, is a little different, A lot of times guys buy comedy clubs on the back end of their career, not the front end. I think that's usually what it is. So a lot of times it's like, well, I've been doing this 15 years and I don't, either don't like the travel or whatever, and I'm going to buy the club, so I'm now in charge. Where I didn't even like going to open mics, so I was like, well, fuck it, I'll just buy the club and then I can just go on stage whenever I want. I don't have to sign up on a list.
And you were a great club owner. You ran Morty's in Indianapolis for years. People might not know that. A lot of the people who watch this thing are Indiana folks. You were that guy. McComas and a couple of other names they may or may not know. You guys were great comedy club owners.
Well, we tried to have a lot of fun. We tried to make it kind of a break from the road, But to your credit, Kostaki, you were the guy I called. I don't know if you remember this. I bought Morty's, and I called. You were we knew each other a little bit from here or there, and I called you and said, "Hey, I bought a comedy club. What are the things I need to focus on?" And you were like, "Hotel. Make sure the hotel doesn't suck. That's all that matters. All we care about is the hotel." I'm like, what about stage? You go, I don't care about lights or sound, just the fucking hotel. If the hotel's nice, then we're good. Everything else doesn't matter. And so we had a nice hotel, and I think it seemed to work. So I appreciate you giving me the input.
All the comics should call me and thank me. Yeah, where's my tip jar for this?
Yeah, exactly, right? So yeah, you were my guy. I called up, and we had a good time. We had fun. Now what's funny is, what's interesting, and I'm interested to get your take on this. Since I don't own the comedy club anymore, and now I'll go back, and Helium, went to downtown Indy, and we're friends with those guys, and they hired a bunch of our staff. So I'll go back, and I'll see some of the headliners we had, and when they were in town, when I owned the club, they would go out to the bars with me. Now they don't. And my question is, you didn't really want to anyway, did you? Like, you were upset you had to go, and you just went to please the club owner. And I wasn't being as cool as I thought I was. That's the thing I've realized since I haven't owned Morty's, is half of you guys didn't want to go out. You were like, oh, God damn it. He's going to pay me, but I got to do shots with this bastard. I don't want to drink anymore. I want to go back to my nice hotel room and take a nap.
I will say that I'm guilty of that, not with you, but with somebody else. And I had the opposite too, where when I worked the Bahamas, when you do that gig, it's 2 weeks and you're in the fucking nicest resort you've ever been to.
Sure.
I didn't party with that guy, and I never went back. And I'm sure that was part of it, because I found out later he was a giant party guy.
I mean, comedy's a numbers game, and there's so many people. I mean, I've told you this many times. I mean, I had every year 83 guys I wanted to headline, and I only had 52 weeks.
Right.
And so, on some level, there were the ones that the guys that the comics that were more fun got brought back more.
Yeah, I get it. I
sell
totally
tickets
get it.
or be fun.
No, I loved hanging out with you. I'd party with you anytime.
Yeah, we had a good time. I was just curious to see how much of if it was 60-40 obligation fun, or if it was it wasn't 100% fun, 0% obligation. I know there was some number in there.
It's funny. Now that I'm a grown up, I do it less. But I saw the model. Like, I would work with Brian Regan or Lewis Black, and they would make a point of kind of picking one night or one lunch and like invite all the staff and like take people out and have fun with everybody. But they didn't do it all the time. Right. And I feel like I sort of graduated into that level of, like, my age starts with a 5 now. I'm not going to party every night, but I'll hang.
We had a couple good time. We had a couple road trips. We played some poker and had a good time. So I appreciate you took me on the road with you. That appreciated that. Was
absolutely. Yeah, you're great. You're great fun to travel around with. Yeah, back when the world was open. Have you done any comedy lately?
What's funny is, like, I haven't done anything since probably August, but like June, July, like April or May, June, July, I did more traveling for comedy than I did before the pandemic started. Total. I mean, like, McComas just had all these weeks in the books, and he took me with him, and so I did like 6 or 7 clubs, socially distanced clubs in May, June, and July.
Tell me about that, because I haven't done that. How weird is it? Was it better than you think? Was it harder than you thought? What was the general vibe?
It was exactly the same. People were just spread out a little bit more. I mean, I will say that, like, people, I will say the one thing with doing comedy during COVID live is that anybody who's out doesn't really give a fuck, so they don't really get offended by much. Like, you can pretty much talk about anything, because the people that would be offended by stuff are at home,
Right. It's a different subset, right?
Kind of like you're weeding out the people that would be upset by stuff generally, because, it's.
That's interesting.
I think you and I have a similar demo. I think you and I have a similar demo, which is mine is Smart Hillbillies.
Yeah, I had you in my head one time when I was. Yeah, go ahead.
If you shop at the Buckle, you're probably a fan of mine, is what I'm saying.
Where was I? Where I immediately thought of you when I did that. There's like an adult fraternity in Indiana.
Oh yeah, in Winchester, Indiana. It's my favorite
Winchester.
place
That's
in the world.
That's the one where I thought of you. I was like, this is exactly the thing that Bowers has been talking about. That crowd was great.
Oh, they're great. I mean, you think Smart Hillbillies, they don't get offended by stuff. They love to drink and party.
Right.
And they're fun, but they get jokes. They understand that they're not like,
Right.
They may have voted for Trump, but they wouldn't tell anybody about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's
the line.
Whatever. I'm just saying, like, but no, they get jokes, but they're not offended by jokes. They get when you're kidding. They understand all of that. So, and they like to drink and party, which is what I like to do. So,
right. Yeah, that's the perfect place for you. Yeah, that's right. I had fun there.
Yeah, it's a good room.
All right, we're still getting echo complaints. Hey guys, if you're watching or just jumping in, we know that I have an echo and he doesn't, so I'm going to try to ask short questions and let him talk. I apologize. We did a restart. We tried everything we could think of. Tell me about being a comedy club owner. Is it harder than you think?
If I had an echo and I repeated everything twice, would that make everybody feel better if we did it that way?
I feel like I'm working a nice big venue like Carrot Top.
I did a high school graduation once as a motivational speaker. I did a high school graduation in Virginia or West Virginia, and it was outside on the football field, and it was one of those ones where the speaker system was a full 2.5 minutes behind your voice. So, it was Lou Gehrig, today. Like, it was literally that bad. And so it was just like, I would just say something, blah, 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 and then you'd hear it come out of the speakers, and they would laugh. And then I would say something again, but luckily I knew my speech well enough that I was literally 2 minutes ahead of the whole speech the whole time. I just knew where it was supposed to be, so I just blocked out. But you would literally hear laughter like 2 minutes after every joke.
That's insane.
It would just come out of the speakers and everyone would laugh. But I'm on a different. I mean, it had to be completely like the movement had to be completely different than the sound. It had to be fucked up, but it was it was that was an interesting one. That was one where each kid, like the valedictorian or whatever, got introduced by another kid in the class, so more people could speak at this little tiny school. But there's like 4,000 people in the stands. That's why it's outside. There's only like 200 graduates, and I'm sitting next to the principal, and this kid comes after. Basically, there was a thunderstorm coming in, and the valedictorian's like, "Hey, it's about to rain. We're just gonna I love you guys. I had a big speech, but I'll good luck," and that was it, right? And this dude comes up who's a senior, cap and gown, but clearly drunk, and he was like, "Wait, I didn't get to talk. And I was like to the principal, I go, "Okay, he's not supposed to be up there. That guy's drunk." And he was like, "No, I think he's introducing one of the speakers." I'm like, "No, that was the last speaker. That guy's drunk." And he gets up and he goes, "I got here 4 years ago as a freshman, and I just want to tell all of you people one thing." And I'm like, "Oh shit, here it goes." And he went,
no.
"Now I've had the time of my life." And the whole class swung. It was awesome. It was it went from I thought it was gonna be terrible to it was their class song, and it was awesome. And then the principal was mad at the kid. I'm like, "No, he didn't do anything bad. He's fine now." I thought he was gonna pull his dick out. The fact that he's
yeah, that could have gotten a lot worse.
Oh, it could have gone way worse. It was I got something to tell you people. I was like, "Oh no, here it comes." Then he was cool. So I'm like, "Well, there you go."
Now, how do you? All right, let's come back to being a club owner later. Tell me about being a motivational speaker. How do you? This is the dumbest question ever, but I have to ask: how do you begin that? That seems like an impossible start.
Well, first you have to suck at sports real bad, and then you're not on the football team. You're on the student council, and then you just go to enough student council stuff. And there was a leadership conference I went to called Hobie when I was a sophomore in high school. It was one sophomore from every school, and it kind of changed my life. I went back every year. And then when I was right after I graduated from college, I was at that same conference, but I was on staff, and I would do the opening and do the icebreakers, and was kind of the leader of the conference or whatever by that point, because I was 22 or 3 or whatever. And there was a guy there that owned a company that went around the country, or at least the state of Indiana, talking to high schools, and he liked me and was looking to expand. So he hired me, and I worked with him for 5 years. And then in 2000, I went on my own and just started traveling around. So I mean, it's all word of mouth. I've never had it's just I have a website, and when I go speak somewhere, I give them my website, and then people find me and hire me to do the next thing. So.
But is it when you're building a speech, a show? Is it like being a comic where you sort of add and subtract? It's got an accordion.
Yeah, it's a lot like it.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's a lot like. The material's the same way. I'll have an idea, and then you go. Now the cool thing, it's a lot like comedy. And if I'm in a big high school, let's say, sometimes I'll do 4 assemblies in a day. 4 1-hour assemblies. So, if I've got a new and I do talking about that Hobie stuff, those are all in May and June. I'll do 6 or 7 of those. So a lot of times if I'm writing a new thing, I'll just go test it, because I'm volunteering my time, so they can't be mad at me. And so I'll just go test it on those audiences. And then, but yeah, when I'm in October, if I think of something and I'm going to school that day, I can just add it in and see how it works, and I can change it and make it better or worse, or I can make it longer or shorter, just like you've developed comedy material. Same exact thing, except it's got to kind of have a point,
Right. So do you have the point going in? Is it like a theme sort of from the beginning?
Actually, sometimes you do it sometimes you write a punchline and then you write the premise to fit the joke. Sometimes there's all kinds of stories that I have that are just a funny story, and somebody's like, "Hey, I like that story," and then I'm like, "Okay, what's the point of it?" But sometimes there's "Okay, I'm trying to make the point about being confident. What's the story that reminds me of when I learned confidence?" And then I build it that way. So it can go both directions.
Right.
Sometimes you just have a funny thing, and I'll write stuff down. This happened 2 years ago. I haven't written into a speech yet, but I was just at a stoplight once, and it was pouring down rain, and there was this kind of old lady at a bus stop, and just getting soaked, and this SUV just rolled down a window and handed her a huge golf umbrella, one of the really expensive ones, and then just drove away. And I'm like, well, that's really cool. Someday I'll put that into a speech. I don't have a spot for it yet. I don't know what it's going to be about, but there's a moment where that will be, and I can tell that story, and people go, "Oh, that's kind of cool." So that's it's kind of how it works. Sometimes you find the inspirational thing, and then you write a story about it. And sometimes you're trying to think of a thing, and it reminds you of a story. Kind of when you're writing a joke. I want to write a joke about, this or that, and then you'll link, "Oh yeah, I remember that time we had that server in Atlanta," and and then it turns into the part of the joke.
Right.
So
you are broadly a spirited, upbeat, happy. Like, do you have days where you just don't want to get out of bed?
No, not really. I mean, yeah, obviously I'm hungover sometimes, if that's your question. But I'm saying like, I mean,
That wasn't, but fair.
but not. I mean, generally no. I mean, I'm pretty excited all the time. I mean, I'm just. I mean, like I tell the story all the time. But like when I got divorced the second time, I went home to my mom and my stepdad, and I was telling them about it at dinner. And my stepdad goes, "Man, I have a question for you." I said, "What?" He goes, "Have you ever been sad?" I go, "What?" He goes, "I've known you since you were 12. I've never seen you sad. Like, what? How are you this upbeat about this? You're getting divorced for the second time. You should be terrible. You should be very sad right now. What are you doing?" But I just don't, I figure I'm always going to be happy. So what's
That's
the
a
point?
nice compliment. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I felt good about it. Steve's known
I
me.
felt good about it.
I mean, I didn't take it as, I was like, oh, well, I guess that you're right. I haven't ever been sad. It's one of my. But again, part of my thing is like, I've always been like, somebody out there has it worse than I do, Like
That's right.
I just, that's my thought. Like when people are like, oh, the weather sucks, I'm like, yeah, you could live in Iraq, I guess. That would be worse than the fact that it's slightly drizzling in America or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I just, I'm trying out for a thing right now out here, and they were like, "What's your biggest obstacle?" And I was like, I don't think I've ever had an obstacle. I don't know. Like if I was gonna go on America's Got Talent, my sob story would be the fact that I don't have a sob story and I can't win talent competitions because nothing bad ever happened to me. Like,
You've
I
been
know
divorced twice.
Yeah, but those were the best things that ever happened to me. Right? I mean,
Louis C.K. said there's divorce is always
nobody,
good news.
Nobody leaves a good marriage. That's not how it
right.
works. You know what I mean? So,
That's right.
and I believe in Louis on that one. I mean, yeah, I mean, my first wedding, my first marriage, the divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me. So, I mean, I literally, oh man, But I got divorced the first time 22 years ago, and we never had kids, so I've never seen her since then. Like
That's a much better construct.
Well, like this is true. Like 6 or 7 years ago, Kostaki, I thought I saw her at a restaurant, and I wasn't sure it was her. To a woman I was married to.
Wow.
And you can't walk up to a woman you used to be married to and be like,
Is that you?
were we married? It's a good way to get stabbed in a restaurant, I think. So I didn't.
So you
go
just
talk
walked
to her.
away?
I just walked away. I was like, I think that might be my ex-wife, but I don't know.
Savannah Martin's chiming in. Nothing bad's ever happened to me either. Good for you.
Hello, Savannah. Savannah's my number one fan. She's my favorite person. She's one of my best friends. She's awesome.
Oh, cool. We got lots of people chiming in. I won't talk too much tonight because I still have a weird echo. Let's get back to you, Bowers. All right, tell me about owning a comedy club because that sounds like a nightmare to me, and I love comedy. It's like we're out of tomatoes. The Jack Daniels didn't come. A waitress quit. Isn't it harder than people think it is?
Well, Kostaki, here's the key. What you need to do is find a best friend. Helps if his name's Tony Deerdorf, who does all the hard stuff. So that all you got to do is pick up comics from the airport and drink beer with them. So really, when that's your job, it's not that bad. I mean, look, the finances of owning a comedy club were terrible. Every Monday we woke up, and every other Monday when payroll was due, and I'd call Tony and be like, "We got to find $5,000 in the next 6 hours." That was always terrible. There's things like that were frustrating. But I've always told people, like me owning a comedy club was like a regular dude owning an NFL football team. I mean, it was awesome for me. I got to decide who started. And what was cool is really, most people when they get into comedy, you idolize the comedians that are ahead of you. You want to hang out with them, be friends with them, and talk to them. There's no better way than this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because now you're hiring them. They like you. They want to be friends with you because then you'll pay them again.
Right.
Which I get.
And you're picking them in the first place.
And I get to pick who I want to see. So like, oh my God, I love Kostaki Kanemalos. I get to put him on my calendar. I don't have to wait till he comes to the club in my town or drive 3 hours or whatever. And then I pick him up from the airport and we hang out the whole time. And I drive him off the airport. It was a really cool. That part was awesome. I mean, I really enjoyed that. And then too, same thing with the local scene. You get to develop the local scene and kind of, reward the people you think are really good comics and have a chance. And if someone's an asshole, you can be the person who says, hey, stop doing that or whatever. I mean, it was cool, definitely. I mean, but that's what I've always done my whole life. Like I've never like in college, I rushed all the fraternities and then joined one that had 8 dudes and built it into a fraternity that had 90. You know what I mean? Like that's just what I do rather than try to join something that's already established. I try to just build my own thing. That way I'm in control of who's in and who's out. And, we're generally cooler than and nicer to people than organizations are sometimes. So
Yeah, you got the logo of the club behind you. Was that was that part of the purchase that already existed before you came along?
Yeah, so Morty's was a club that, they spent like $1 million on that building when they bought it and originally, and they were open for like 4 or 5 years, and then they had an ownership shakeup, and it was my home club. The first 2 years I was doing comedy for real, it was the club I loved, and so when we went out of business, we just put together. I mean, it cost like $25,000 to buy the whole thing. It was less than my car.
I think
So
that's what I think people don't understand. Like, you're not really buying much. It's the name and the
you don't
brand.
own anything. I mean, you get computer systems and a stage and some microphones. I mean, again, it's one of those things where, like, to build it all. I mean, it's kind of like when someone steals shit out of your house. It costs you $800 to get a new TV. They're gonna get $83 for that television they stole from you.
Right.
There's just this economy. So I mean, like, there is a lot of stuff that if you started from scratch, it would cost you $200,000. But
Right.
every comic club we bought for like $30,000. I mean, they're not
Right.
that expensive. But
You're buying
again,
the
it's just
footprint in the town and sort of the deal and the lease.
we didn't own the building. I mean, so that's part. I mean, if you own the building, that's a whole different thing. But I mean,
Right.
we had landlords and all that. I mean, and there were times where it was super stressful. And I'm really glad I don't own any comic clubs anymore. But it
Yeah.
was a super fun time for a long time. I mean, we had a blast and it was cool and it really helped me comedically. I got to be on stage whenever I wanted, and I didn't have to worry about. I mean, I think one of the hardest things in comedy, if people don't know, when you first start comedy, is you only get 4 or 5 minutes, you get 6 minutes, you get 3 minutes, and it's just really hard to do that. Now, part of that is to teach you how to write with brevity, so that once you're good, you're not telling, because if you could do 40 minutes every time you did an open mic, we wouldn't be as good. I mean, the
Right.
time makes us funnier because you have to cut out things that aren't funny because you only have so much time. But the cool part about being an owner of a club is you don't have to worry about that. Like when we first bought the Louisville club, we went down there and the sound guy was like, "So when do you want me to light me?" I was hosting like the first weekend. He goes, "So when do you want me to light you?" And I said, "I'm just going to talk till I'm done." I mean, it's going to be 6 to 8 minutes long. I'm not going to do 45 minutes. I'm not certain comics that we know that we don't say their names anymore, but that would own the club and then headline after your set for 45 minutes. We call him Mark Plummer now, so we don't have to we don't have to give him any credit.
Oh, you got like a pseudonym for him?
Yeah, if you know who I'm talking about. But
I think so. Yeah.
But it was great from a comedy standpoint because I got to do comedy whenever I want it. I could take chances because no one's gonna be mad at me. It was me.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, as long as I wasn't so terrible that everyone left Morty's because I wasn't walking people, but like I could develop material at my own pace because I wasn't worried about impressing anybody.
Right. Now, I always thought this was fascinating. Like, there's some comics, the Andy Kindlers of the world who are great comics and might not draw, might not land in your room, versus, to take the extreme topical example, Dustin Diamond, who's going to draw and do well in the room, but maybe you don't love the act. Did you wind up with any of that sort of stuff? How do you deal with those situations?
Our rule was be funny, be a good person, draw. You have to do 2 of the 3. So if you're funny and you draw, but you're a piece of shit, and I don't mean like you're assaulting people, but
Right.
like you're just an asshole, right? And you're hard to work with, and you're late all the time, and you have a bunch of shit on your writer.
Right.
Okay, but like if you're super funny and you draw, you can be a dick. You're allowed to be.
That's interesting.
And if
Yeah.
you're a super good dude and you're super funny, I don't care if you sell any tickets. I mean, I'd rather you did. But, sometimes you can't, whatever. And then same thing. There were people who were, draws and super good dudes who weren't that funny. Yeah, as long as you're a good dude and people buy your tickets, I don't care.
That's interesting. That's an interesting combination, because the first couple of pairings, I thought of names immediately. Like a Gary Goldman several years ago, great dude, super funny, but probably not drawing enough to make sense for what you're paying him. Is that fair?
No, I mean, I will say we didn't ever have people we lost money on. So I mean,
Okay.
even if you were a good, I mean, like, you know, so like if you're a $1,500 guy, you're still selling that many. You're selling $1,500 worth of tickets. I'm not usually losing money on the tickets, even
Right.
for the lowest draw, because we didn't paper a lot. That wasn't our thing. I'd rather have 70 people that paid $15 at a show than 250 people that didn't pay anything.
Gotcha.
Just generally, you know.
Right.
So, but there were some guys that were super good dudes that people came to see, that were, you know, celebrities that were great, but, you know, from a comic standpoint, they didn't blow me away. But I mean, they weren't racist or homophobic or misogynistic. It wasn't like they were terrible people.
Right,
You know what
right,
I mean?
right.
Like that. I'm just saying, like, they just may not have been super, super funny. I mean,
Right.
you know, Steve-O's a guy who's a super great dude and sells a shit ton of tickets. And I think his act's funny, actually. But, like, I could see if you didn't think it was funny, that's the kind of guy. There's guys like that.
Yeah, there's a whole subcategory of that ilk of character. Right.
Yeah, well,
He's
they're
not-
great guys. And I think they're funny. Are they as funny as Gary Goldman? Well, no, but you know, that's not
Who is?
who is. You know what I mean? So, and again, for every comic, there's an audience person that, you know. I mean, like there was some hillbilly one. I introduced Gary Goldman as the best comic in the United States, and he was, in my opinion, this is the best comic we ever have come here. This is the best guy we have come here. Is Gary Goldman. He's my favorite writer. And this guy came up to the bar after and was like, "That's the best you bring in here. That's what you're talking about. That's the best you fucking got. That's your best, man." Fuck, I don't think I'm coming back here. And I was like, "Yeah, you probably shouldn't."
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That's so funny. I've had so many great times in that room. I did a set there once, a headline there once, and after the show, I'm hawking some CDs and shaking hands. Hey, great show, blah, blah, blah. Love you on Bob and Tom. Tom was standing right next to me, and nobody knew it was him. And that's when I thought, this is the perfect kind of fame, like to be a big shot in your town, but to be able to walk through it unnoticed.
Well, part of that's because all Tom's merch still has hair. So he keeps giving out all those condoms and playing cards with his hair on his head, and so of course people don't recognize him. But
It's so funny to hear people. I love Bob and Tom. Love you on Bob and Tom. And he's Tom. This Tom. This is Tom. They were like, what? They didn't,
well, it is the radio. I mean, I get that. You know, it's a little
So
bit
funny.
but yeah,
Radio
that is well, you know, talking to Ron Sexton, who created Donnie Baker, he said that where he created Donnie Baker in those lines where they're on the Bob and Tom tour, and somebody's like, "I know Chick's not your real name." It's like there's always one dude like trying to tell jokes in line, thinking he'd get on Bob and Tom if he was just funny enough while he was buying CDs or whatever.
Yeah.
It always makes me laugh.
I've met all those guys. So you're in LA. What's your plan? Are you staying there?
Yeah, so far, I mean, you know, I think there's gonna be a lot of opportunity once the world opens back up. Specifically here, I think a lot of people left. I was talking to my friend Jen Murphy about this yesterday. How many comics do you think were in LA trying to be comics before the pandemic? Give me a number. What do you think? A ball.
Me?
Yeah, you.
1,000.
Oh, so I think it was closer to 10. There's probably 10,000 comics in this.
10,000 comics?
In LA? I'm not talking about comics that are good. I'm talking about people that think they're comics.
It's a little bit of a gray area.
I'm talking people who go on stage because they are quote unquote comics in LA. And there's probably 5 to 10,000 of them, and I think a third or 50% of those went home to Massachusetts or wherever they're from and aren't coming back. So there's going to be a lot of people out of the way, you know?
That's an interesting theory. I'm interested to see if this works.
And then you look at like Joe Rogan, all those guys, they all moved to Austin. So I'm assuming once everything opens up, they'll come back to LA eventually, but like it's going to be not for a while. So there's going to be some spots open. There's going to be a bunch of spots open places, you know? And I'm not saying I'm going to get a Joe Rogan spot, obviously, but like the person who gets that spot leaves a spot that somebody who ahead of me is going to get, and then I'm going to get that guy's spot.
You're a genius.
Well, I mean, I heard Jay Leno on Mark Maron one time said, you know, the key to Hollywood and comedy, just don't get out of line. He's like, you're just in line, and every time somebody gets out of line, whether they get a sitcom or they quit or whatever, you take a step up, and eventually it's your turn. And I know it's not quite like that anymore because there's so many more people. But to be honest, most of the comics I know that have just gone one direction and stuck at it have eventually gotten something. Whether it's
That's right.
They may not be on a sitcom, they may not make $1 million, but they've all gotten a late night or a something or a Netflix or a something.
Right.
If they just stuck with it long enough.
I think that about death because there's, every month or so there's a comic who dies, and I'm like, well, I'm still alive. I get to move up a notch.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's no, you're not wrong there.
I mean, we could name 100 good comics who've died in the last 10 years, right? Easy.
Probably, yeah.
It's amazing how often it happens. And of course, now that I'm a grown up, I know more of these guys, but still.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the weirdest things about my owning a comedy club is I had 3 different people named Spanky in my phone at one point. So, that's...
Surely one of them is the drug guy. Not Spanky the comic? Spanky that
There were 3 Spankys.
Disappeared into colleges for a long time, the older guy?
Well,
Older
there was
than me,
Spanky
Spanky?
McFarlane. What was Spanky? Well, what's Spanky? There was a New York guy named Spanky, bald white dude, older than you.
Yep, that's
And
him.
there was Spanky Brown.
I remember. Okay, I know
And
both of
then
those
there was
guys.
some other Spanky comic from Florida that somehow was in my phone. I don't know. He wasn't.
Spanky was the go-between in one of the ugliest scenes I ever had in comedy. It was Kip Adada. Do you ever work with him? He's a little older than you. Remember that song? It was a fish pun song called "Wet Dream." Ever had a wet dream?
Oh, yeah,
Floating in the Gulf Stream.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
Kip Adada. Ooh.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was like a kick the door down comic in the 80s, and he just fell off a cliff with drinking and bitterness and sad. I don't know, something happened. I worked with him at the Ice House, and I was hosting. Spanky was the middle. Kip's the headliner. I'm hosting. I go over and I go, what do you want me to say? And he grabs my hand, he pulls me in, he goes, just make something up, because if I tell you the real credits, you're going to forget them and you're going to fuck it up and it'll be terrible, so just make something up. And he kind of dismisses me like that. And I thought he was fucking around, so I sort of laughed, and he leaves, and Spanky's the middle. I kind of know him from a NACA thing or something.
Sure.
And I go, what? He knew him, and he's just like, just make something up. It'll be fine. So I go on stage. I do pretty well. It's the Ice House, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Spanky does great. Now it's time for me to introduce Kip. And Spanky gave me some credit, so I had something to say. I start introducing him, and he stops me, and he goes, like I'm on stage trying to bring him on, and he's in the crowd, and he's walking around in the crowd, and he's doing one-liners with no mic to the audience while I'm on stage trying to introduce him. A couple different times he goes, go ahead and introduce me, and then he stops me and does this shtick again. So he goes, okay, bring me on for real this time, and I go, he's worked with Frank Sinatra, and I don't know why I said this. I go, he opened for Noah, and ladies and gentlemen,
He went on right after the Alligators. You guys don't remember him? It was great.
He was fucking furious. He comes on stage and he does this whole thing where he sort of dismisses me in front of the crowd, and the crowd had already liked me. So now they're like, oh, he's an asshole. Like before he even starts.
Right.
And he just has a terrible set, and he gets off early, and I have to go on and do time at the end because they haven't dropped the checks.
What a dick.
He was such an asshole.
I hate, and by the way, I'll give you credit for this. You could be this guy, and I give you a lot of credit for not being this guy, but like, there's nothing, because I MC all the time, and people have fucking hard names to pronounce or whatever.
Oh, right.
But like their whole opening 6 minutes is how stupid the MC is for fucking up their name. And so I just always try to get it right, just because then I can tell they like panic a little because it's not fucked up and they don't have their opening 3 minutes, and they'll be like, yeah, last club I was at, a guy called me fucking, whatever. And I'm like, it wasn't me though, dick. Fucking didn't get me. You're not going to use the MC fucked up my name fucking chunk on my watch, you bitch.
I love it.
Because I mean, you always had a couple of those. Like they were some funny mispronounced, but that wasn't like your entire personality. It wasn't like your whole first, like like eventually. I remember you have some very funny ones that people have called you because yours is bananas. But I mean, one of the hardest ones of all time to once you get it,
scary.
Once you get it,
say.
it's not hard. It's just like at least all the sounds are identifiable. Some people have times that have names, or like I don't even think I've ever made that noise before.
Yeah,
Forget,
the letters.
I don't know what your name is. I've never
combination
even,
of consonants, and you're like, what?
Yeah, I don't, But I'll call you whatever you want to call it. What want me to call you? I don't give a shit. Whatever it is, let's do it. I just, it just makes me laugh. Like that, I love when guys can't get off script, Like I saw a comic once that, normally isn't playing in front of anybody. You can tell, like, his whole act was like, oh, I wanted no energy from this side of the room. And I told him, don't even let these people, don't even have chairs on this side or whatever. And then you see him do a sold-out room, and they use the same bits about how no one's there and there's no energy after they got, like, a standing ovation for the middle. And you're like, are you not listening to anything that's happening? What are you talking about? This crowd is awesome. But they just can't get off schedule because that's how they go.
I'm familiar with that guy. I know those guys. Now, is it possible to run a club and do it well? What's the key now? Because the times have changed. A lot of the acts that draw left the club level, and so that made it harder. It's harder to get people outside and into a thing.
Here's what I've learned from owning comedy clubs, Kostaki. When I'm not in charge, I know exactly what to do. And when I am in charge, I have no fucking idea what we should do. And that's really what it comes down to is I don't know. I mean, that's all I know is I don't know. I mean, like, do I have theories? I guess, but like, right now it's people that, most comedy club weekends are people who already sell a bunch of tickets, but they take all the money. So like, it's not like, if we get whatever A-list guy, they're usually taking 95% of the door. So even if I sell $30,000 in tickets, they're making $28,000 of that.
Right.
And then I'm paying the middle and everybody else out of the other 2,000. And so now you're just doing food and drinks and, I don't know. I mean, like that's, and then they bring their own middle now. I mean, the system's all changed a whole bunch.
Right.
I am interested to see what's about to happen though, because, everyone's been inside or been, a year and a half by the time we're outside. Is this just going to be the end of Prohibition for 3 years? And it's going to be like the 80s where anybody can, if you have a comedy room, it'll be sold out no matter who's up there.
Wouldn't that be
2 or 3
fun?
years.
Won't that be the great answer?
I mean,
please.
I think there's a chance that happens. I think there's a chance that people are just looking for entertainment. They're looking for live entertainment. They're looking to be outside. My favorite thing about the pandemic is that the guy who makes the jokes about how he hates people and wishes he didn't have to be outside, he wishes he could just be home and cancel all his plans, that's not funny anymore for the next 4 or 5 years. I hate that guy. So a whole fucking comedy genre gone. The bitching about being outside guys are fucked.
But when last you were on the edge of doing comedy, you guys were going to go into a bar in Indiana that already was a bar and already had a business model that worked that didn't include comedy, and you were going to add comedy to that. Is that a better construct?
Again, I don't know. I mean, our idea is we were going to take over a Fox and the Hound and make one of the rooms a comedy room, and the rest of it would just be a Fox and the Hound was the idea. Now, we never found any investors that would invest in that, so that tells me it probably wasn't a good idea. But, the thing I've learned, and this is where, talk about whatever, is the thing rich people don't tell you is that it's really easy to turn $1 million into $2 million. It's fucking impossible to turn $10,000 into $100,000. like if you have the capital to spend, you can make that money make more money. But if you have no money, then we paid $11,000 a year in overdraft fees to give you a sense of what it was like. That's $26 every time a check gets returned. Now, our bank would pay the people the check, so we didn't bounce checks to you, for instance. But I guarantee every check I ever gave you also paid $26 on the back end of it for them to clear it.
That's crazy.
Because it wasn't good. Because payroll hit and then it wasn't good till Wednesday or whatever. You know what I mean? It was all cash flow. It wasn't even like, at the end of the day, we made a little bit of money every year. But, we could never be ahead in July enough, or ahead through March enough to pay July's bills with the money we needed in November. I mean, it was just the cash flow was our problem. And
Right.
So, I mean,
It's tough business, man. It's a thin margin, right? I mean, you're like
Dude,
one.
all businesses are tough businesses, man. Here's the thing. Nobody knows what the fuck people are going to like. Right? That's why half the TV shows suck, half the movies suck, half the musicals suck, half the music sucks, half the fucking teams suck, because nobody knows what we're all going to decide to like. Right? I mean, if I sat down in a meeting with you 2 years ago, all right, I'm going to pitch you 2 shows, Tiger King and Masked Singer, both are going to be phenomenon. You'd be like, shut the fuck up. What are you talking about?
I would have guessed 0 for 2 on these ideas.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, nobody has any idea. I mean, look at, like, the Mulaney Show. Did anybody think the Mulaney Show wasn't going to be the best sitcom in the history of sitcoms? Here's John Mulaney, one of the funniest guys of all time. The cast was amazing. Seton Smith, people from Saturday Night Live. Fucking Martin Short was on the goddamn thing. How did that not be? And people just didn't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody has any fucking idea. And that's that's the weird thing. Like, even booking a comic, I was like, okay, well, this guy's a super big name and he costs this much money. Well, sometimes those guys draw, sometimes they don't. It's weird.
Right.
You know, we're like, oh, this guy's $10,000 and I'd lose $6,000 on him. And then another guy costs $10,000 and I'd make $8,000 on him. It was just weird. You just never know what the public's going to like and what they're going to decide to, I mean, it's like, how do you get something to go viral? Who fucking knows? I mean,
yeah.
I got a buddy, this Jared Kasenbaum kid. He's from Indianapolis. He's a super funny kid. Was a comic kind of, and then moved to LA. He's been here 4 or 5 years. And about 4 years ago, as a joke, he just started making himself the Ocean Spray cranberry juice guy. And he wrote like a song about it, and like he just makes jokes about cranberry juice all the time. It just became his thing. He just picked and then so he's been like adding them like at cranberry juice for like Ocean Spray for 4 years. He finally got a hold of some of the marketing people. They were actually having a meeting with him, and then the day before the meeting, that dude rides a skateboard, listening to fucking music, drinking the fucking cranberry juice, and goes viral. The guy, did you see that they bought him a truck? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, this dog face guy. He was listening to Fleetwood Mac, riding a skateboard to work because his car broke down, drinking Ocean Spray out of the bottle, and it went viral for some reason. And they bought him a truck, and now he's Mr. Ocean Spray. And my buddy Jared was like, I think the universe is mocking me at this point. I mean, like, like, he had the right thing. He had it picked, and for some reason, he wasn't the guy that people jumped on this cranberry juice fucking bandwagon for whatever reason.
Life is so weird, man. I was on Pardo's podcast this couple weeks ago. He did somehow it came up that he did a one-man show. His compatriots were busting his balls about it. And I go, wait, I didn't know you did a one-man show. And he sort of like told us a little bit about it. It opened on 9/10.
Oh, God.
To great reviews, and then was washed away by the world. Can you imagine?
I mean, I had a buddy, it's kind of similar. I had a buddy that was actually my second wife's boss. He had a tech startup. This is during the tech bubble, like 2002 or 3. He actually spoke at this leadership conference I ran. He came as one of the speakers, and the day the bubble burst was the day he was about to do the stock options for his company. So he was in New York to sign this deal to go public. He said, when I was in the elevator on the first floor, I was worth $72 million. And by the time I got to the 116th floor to sign the paperwork, I was worth nothing. Wow. Because it just crashed right in the middle of the elevator ride. I mean, shit like that happens all the time, man.
That's right.
AAA baseball players. I would love to do I'd love to do a podcast on AAA baseball players that were just there 10 years and finally quit. You know what I mean? Like, just can't hit a curveball. Really good, best athlete in the history of their high school, started in college, got drafted, got a signing bonus, gonna be a zillionaire. Nope. Just played in Macon for 10 years and, set some RBI records for the whatever the Macon AAA baseball team is.
Oh, Macon's one of the worst towns in America. The only thing good about Macon is their hockey team. They have a AAA, whatever the low-level hockey is. It's called the Macon Whoopie. That's the only good thing about Macon.
Minor league sports and their names are so funny. All right, here's our business plan. We're gonna make half our money on playing the sport and half on our sexually joking hats.
Yeah, that's right. Man,
Half of our profit is innuendo.
that's way more than you were going to make with just baseball.
Oh, for sure. Well, did you see the Fort Wayne AAA baseball team are the Tin Caps, right? And they have a face with a tin hat on and because it was an apple with a tin hat because Johnny Appleseed is from Fort Wayne apparently, and he used to wear a metal pot on his head when he planted all the apple trees because apparently Johnny Appleseed was insane. They don't tell you that part in the books, but the reason they're is they had an online vote. And Tin Caps is what the compromise was, but the vote, what won was the potheads. They were going to be the Fort Wayne potheads is what won online. And they said, well, we can't be the potheads. Kids might try marijuana, so now they're Tin Caps.
They said goodbye to $2 million right there.
I know. If they'd have been the potheads with their little Apple logo, because they also make an apple into a bong, it would have been amazing. Just an apple with a little, like a gunshot wound on the side of his head where you're smoking into a bong. Oh, that'd be amazing. I'd buy that hat.
It's great to talk to you, man. I'm sorry we had a weird echo thing. I'm glad you didn't have an echo. I could just shut up and listen to you talk for a while.
Well,
You're a good dude, man. Thank you for coming on and doing this.
Hey, no problem, man. Anytime.
Give us the plugs. We want to talk about the socially distancing social club. Did I get that right?
It's socially distanced social club. So it's SDSC. So SDSCshow.com is where you can check that out. Again, we stream Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, 3 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, and noon Pacific on Saturday. Just go to SDSCshow.com. You can pick up all the streams. And you can also buy tickets. So we do have a front row Zoom. So it's a Zoom broadcast. So there's a front row where people can be in and they can, sometimes we ask them questions and that kind of stuff. And they're there just to laugh and have a good time. And then you can watch, but you can also watch it passively on YouTube or Twitch or Twitter. And then we're starting a podcast called Origin Stories, where we're going to interview the people from the show. Like we'll have you on sometime, Kasaki, and just kind of the log line is we want to find the metaphorical dead parents in the metaphorical alley that is your life. We're going to find your origin story and how you became a comic. So that's kind of what that's about. That's on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific from now on. So next week's Kristen Key, then Katrina Davis, then Jamie Kennedy, and then we'll go from there. So you can go to NowhereComedyClub.com to check out tickets. And if you guys haven't tried online comedy yet, watching it, give it a shot. It's actually not terrible. It's you can really have a lot of fun, and it's fun in a different way, So if you go to NowhereComedyClub.com, there's all kinds of great shows. The Sklar brothers do a cool podcast.
It's big names, man.
Mike Birbiglia does these shows. I mean, Birbiglia's been killing it, dude. He's been doing these like new material shows where they sell 1,000 tickets. There'll be 1,000 people in the Zoom watching him.
That's amazing.
And he does 7 shows. He sold 7 shows out last month.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's crazy. So he does that like once a month. So that's pretty cool. There's all kinds of stuff going on at Nowhere. But check that show out. We have comics on every day, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I said the same thing. I did my Nowhere show last week. I did a new hour I'd never done, and it was amazing for me creatively to have that goal and to work on it and like have that month tick down. Like I got to work, I got to write.
Yep.
And it was fun. The people were very giving, and it was really a pleasure to do the show. So if you haven't tried it, do it.
Here's a question I have for you, because I was thinking of this the other day. One of the things I think about Zoom comedy is, and I think it's way more supportive. Like, I think people go into it with like, hey, this is a weird technology. We got to help them out. So I'm going to laugh harder than maybe I normally would. So is that better or worse as a comic? If you're developing material, do you want the audience to be on your side and to give you the benefit of the doubt? Or do you want to pry every laugh out of their stupid fucking heads to make sure that it's funny? You know what I mean?
Good question. I think when it's new, you like a generous situation, because you're going to have plenty of time to tighten it up out in the real world. If you can bring up some of those valleys and peaks a little bit during the rough phase, I think that's good to have. If you could pick that, I think that's a good setup.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of like the idea of like, well, once we get where we can go back into the real world, do we want to encourage people like, hey, give us the benefit of the doubt, man. This is our dream and we're trying. They're not all going to work. Like,
Yeah, that's right.
like if we could change the attitude of the comedy audience from like, you better be fucking funny, dick, to like, hey, what do you got to say? I like to laugh. Maybe we can laugh together. Wouldn't that be a better?
Let's do this together, right? Instead of an adversarial. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is not like,
Yeah.
you know, like you wouldn't, like when you fuck somebody, you're hoping they make you come. You're not like sitting there the whole time going, you bet you can't. Like, what would be the point of that?
What a delightful parallel, Chris. That's why comedy is better in the Midwest or in Canada, where people are nice and they're rooting for you. Right?
Oh yeah, for sure. No, that's
Right.
definitely part of it. And that's what's so funny. I kind of decided that like I might say I'm always recording an album.
Oh yeah, they give you a little bit of like, oh, well, you know.
I mean, they clap, they because they want to be on the album, laughing loud. Like, I can hear my laugh. So if you just tell them you're always recording an album, I think you'll always be super funny.
That's a good shtick. And actually, in the modern universe, you might be recording an album on any given night, right?
Oh, I mean, for sure.
Piece
The way
from
the
here, you put a piece from there.
oh yeah, and the way the world works, and it's all recorded now, and
Yeah, that's right.
you know, so. But no, it's been fun, man. I appreciate it. Anytime you want to have me come on.
You're great. Chris Bowers, everybody, go find him. Click the banner over to this. I should have done this at some point. It's at Bowers Comedy on Instagram and Twitter. Go find him. He's a good follow and is a good dude. And check out tell me the title again.
Social Distancing Social Club, SDSCshow.com.
I've done it. It's great. You guys are very generous and super hilarious. It's actually a really good show. So go check that out. Check out me next week. We might do an interview of me with me. I'll just be, hopefully we get rid of this echo anyway.
Well, I think
else.
if you just have the echo, then you're both parts.
I could just ask me. Thanks for hanging in there, everybody. Take it easy. We'll see you again. Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.